those right now. Okay, hang on a sec. Right? Okay, let me check my phone to make sure that we are out here live. Darren Barnes is watching. Hey, Darren. Hey, William Marvin Ridgely Sr. and Benjamin in Germany. Okay, I know we're up and running now.
Nice.
Okay. All right. Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode, and a very special episode at that, of Hollywood Kitchen. We are here to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the debut of the I Love Lucy show. We're going to talk about, we have so much to unpack from Lucy's movies, her television, her life, her food. And I'm so lucky today to have the great Rick Carl. Rick Carl is an artist, a graphic arts designer, a historian, a Lucille Ball expert, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Carrie. This should be fun. I mean, look at the two of you right there next to each other. That's pretty cool.
Yep. I kind of had a Lucy-esque morning, to be honest with you. My cooking bowl dropped and shattered all over the floor. And then I ran out of flour and had to run to the store. And I've been running around like a maniac all morning. So I think that, I think she would understand.
And she'll inspire you.
This is true. So for people watching who may be young or maybe have lived on a different planet and they don't know who Lucy is, give us a quick 101 about who was Lucy and why is she relevant today?
Well, Lucy was, I'll just try to do the 101, as you said. She was an American actress and a pioneer in comedy. She was the star of her own popular television series, along with her husband at the time, Mr. Arnaz. But she was an entertainer and a businesswoman, and she continuously broke barriers for women in the business, in the industry. And the fun part was she was nominated 13 times over the years for Emmys. She won 4. And I can tell you that she has 2 stars on the Walk of Fame, one for television and one for film. Yes, she did over 75 films and learned her craft early. Lucy was born in Jamestown, New York on August 1911 and passed away in Beverly Hills in 1989. So the fact that she's still on television 70 years later, I think she must be somewhat relevant today. But there's quite a few things I can tell you about relevant, or at least the fact that this is a very special time, because not only did you mention the fact that on Friday, the 15th, I Love Lucy turned 70, and it's all over the internet. The fact that Turner Classics is doing their podcast on Lucille Ball, mostly known for television, but the fact is they're showing, I don't know how many films of hers over the whole month. She's the star of the month. Amy Poehler, through Ron Howard's company, is doing a documentary on her, so that's being done. Recently, Sirius FM did her 1960s radio interview. She interviewed over 200 famous stars of the day, and those were highly successful now. So people are embracing her still. And also the fact is, there's a little film that's going to be released, hopefully in December, called Being the Ricardos, which is, everybody that has been on the internet knows this is not about Lucy and Ricky. It's about Lucy and Desi. By the way, his name is Desi, not Desi. But anyway, that's coming from Aaron Sorkin's company. And I think she's still around. Plus, I should tell you that she definitely inspires comedians of today. And even people like Carol Burnett, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler. I guess that makes her relevant.
Absolutely. I think Lucy is such an icon and such an inspiration and a trailblazing woman. So there's so much to love about Lucy.
You know, the fact that we talked earlier about the fact that Mary Pickford was probably one of the very first women in the industry to get behind the scenes and really run a studio or least United Artists, correct? I mean,
Well, she ran United Artists. She had her own production company. I
right.
try never to say the first anything because anytime the word first leaves my mouth, somebody somewhere will prove me completely wrong about it. So I always try to say among the first or
There you
one
go.
of the earliest, you know.
Well, and later in the 60s, Lucy did just that. She inherited Desilu and she hated it. I mean, this woman wanted to just be, she used to say that I go in front of the camera and do my work. Everybody else supports me and does what they do. And that team was amazing, from the writers, these brilliant writers and producers and all the craftsmen behind the scenes. But Mr. Arnaz was the reason she could just go to work and be Lucy. And the fact is that when he sold out his share in the 60s, and then she inherited the studio, that studio was thriving. It was an empire. And the Untouchables and so many shows that in the 50s. But then when the 60s came around, oh my God, what am I going to do? So she kept the right people with her, and she hated the hiring, the firing, all of it. She said she cried all the time. But there's pictures of her, as I mentioned to you once, she's at the meetings, they're all lined up at the table, and she's got her glasses on, and she's sitting there like this. You can just tell this is not what she wants to do, but she actually did it quite well. So to run, a studio like that, and then eventually, like you just said, she formed her Lucille Ball Productions company herself. So once that was sold, she then formed it with her second husband, Gary Morton. And there she was, still on television up until the 70s.
Sorry,
So
one of my lights keeps going out. So bear with me
she's
here.
talking to you.
Right. Lucy's like, giving me her, I hope, her sign of approval. Let's see.
Careful.
Hang on. Okay.
Can I just
Sorry.
share something with, are you okay? Is it work? It looks
Yeah,
fine.
trying to, my light keeps going in and out. I apologize, doing the best I can here.
No,
So
speaking, can I tell you something about that? That's funny you should mention that, because she might be, I like your cups. I should read something to you. I had a book that I was trying to work on about artwork of Lucy, something, like this, just I was going to compile it, but I wanted to put quotes in there. And you mentioned something about your light. Well, there was a story that Lucy said to one of the grips on her show, I think one of the lights is out up there. Could you please go check it? It wasn't demanding. It wasn't nasty. It was just, she knew. She felt it. She'd been in the business already 30 years, 30 plus years. She knew her lighting. And no, we're fine. Could you please check it? Like what's happening right now.
we're just gonna go with it, guys,
Yeah.
because every episode, I swear, I have some sort of behind the scenes crisis. I'm just gonna go with it because I have no other choice. So
No, that's fine.
so
But
let's talk about the food, because you and I had several conversations about what we were going to make. And we wound up settling on the walnut crisp because Lucy was known, as you mentioned, for her persimmon cake.
right. And those are in season late October, November, maybe even December.
Okay.
So we passed on that, but I do have a recipe that she even signed. So apparently she dabbled, and that was one of her things that she liked to make. But she also liked her plain New England background, where she came from in New York, cooking. She called it New England boiled dinners, beef and cabbage and potatoes. She also was fond for things called chopped chicken livers. But I know I don't even like liver, much less chopped.
Figure.
But she dabbled in the kitchen. But again, this was a woman that was running a studio, working, trying to raise a family, being married a second time. When do you have time to really cook?
I'm surprised these people did not have feeding tubes, to be honest, because how did they sleep, eat, go to the bathroom, shower? I mean, seriously, they worked. Their creative output is just staggering.
Well,
Really
you
staggering.
have help. She was in the position to have help, to help raise the kids, to help run the house, help people get there to their destination. And you know what, I have to tell you briefly, I got to meet some of those people. And for what I've heard over the years, how tough she was, and this, that, and the other, if those people lasted 30 and 40 and 50 years, they could have worked anywhere. But they remain loyal. There was a reason they remained loyal. So just saying. that when you have your team around you, be good to them. So apparently she was.
Yes. So we're going to make the walnut crisps, and tell us where this recipe came from, Rick.
This recipe came from a 1955 TV magazine. And one day a friend had found this recipe, and Carrie actually was kind enough to find it on eBay. So we recently just purchased it. And it was one of those TV magazines in the 50s. And in fact, here is what it looks like. So that's from 1955 of February. And inside there's, if you saw Carrie's site, there is the shot of her in the kitchen cooking, which may be just publicity, but she is doing it. And there's a bunch of recipes of goulash, Ricardo goulash, and all these things. But the walnut crisp kind of stuck for me because they were easy and clean, and I've done them myself. In fact, they weren't bad. They really are just a nice little crisp cookie. And I thought that was a little easier. Is she well known for that? No, but I chose it because it just seemed like something that would be easy to make within an hour, and you've got it for your friends.
And plus, I just did the Lon Chaney Jr. stew, so I just did a stew-esque kind of thing. So, all right. So here's what we're going to need in order to make the walnut crisp. And as always, the recipe after the episode we'll post at HollywoodKitchenShow.com. We need 1 egg. We need 1 cup of firmly packed brown sugar, 1/2 cup of melted butter or margarine, 1 3/4 cups sifted all-purpose flour. Let's see, a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 cup of walnut meats. So,
And you chop those meats by yourself instead of buying
did.
them. So she's amazing.
I did chop all of them by myself. Okay, so we're gonna beat the egg. All right, then add the brown sugar and melted butter or margarine. So we're gonna add the brown sugar.
Why does it have to be so firmly packed? That's what I wanted to know.
I know. I don't understand that either. Maybe because it has a fluffiness to it and you have to try to get the maximum amount, maybe? Okay, so we've got the egg, the brown sugar, and we're gonna add in that butter. Okay. And then we're going to sift together with the flour, baking powder, and salt. So let's see here. We've got the flour, the salt, baking powder. Hang on, let me run and grab my sifter.
Okay. I have to tell you, Carrie, you're doing it way more glamorous than I did. It looks like a beautiful cooking show. Mine was a mess. Mine was a mess.
Well, I can't find my sifter. Hang on.
Okay. I quite frankly just dumped it in there.
I think that's what I'm going to do, because honestly, the time it's going to take for me to ransack my tiny kitchen and find the sifter will be bad. So
Not worth it.
I'm just going to dump it all in there.
There you go. I did it and it worked.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do.
Mix it well.
All right, let's see. So we're gonna sift together. All right, add this to the egg mixture. All right, doing that and stirring it up.
Do
Okay.
you by any chance have a little thing of vanilla? If not, I don't think you need it.
Yeah, I do have vanilla. I want to get this stirred up kind of well though before I start adding the other ingredients. Okay, so let's.
And the thing is, it said, what is it? 1 3/4 cup sifted all-purpose flour. And I thought that is a lot of flour, but there's a reason for it. And it's exactly what you're doing is exactly what I was doing, and it starts taking shape and turning the brownish.
Yes, it does. Okay, so let's see. Chopped walnut meats. I did that. I love how they call them nut meats back then.
Why? That's what I guess that's the vintage term for it.
I guess so, but I think that should make a comeback, to be honest. I like that. All right, chop the walnut meats and put them in. Okay, so we're gonna do that. I chopped these so fine. I swear there's like nut dust all over my kitchen. Okay. Now add vanilla extract, mixing well. Okay, so we're going to add our vanilla extract. Okay. Okay. Now, this is where we get into the trickier part of shaping these in rolls on wax paper. So
Just make sure you're all mixed in. And that's what I was kind of folding it like you're doing. It's not easy. It's a lot of strength.
yeah, this is like a huge arm workout, basically.
Careful.
So,
Yeah, it's exactly what I felt because I didn't want to see any flour. And once it's mixed together, yeah, you're correct. It says, shape into 2-inch rolls. Yeah, nice.
so this is what it looks like. Okay, so we're going to shape into rolls on waxed paper. All right, so I'm going to dump this out onto the paper as best I can. Oh God, it's so thick. Jeez. Okay. It's thick and this bowl is heavy. Okay. All right, we're gonna dump it onto the wax paper.
It looks a lot better later.
Yeah, I swear this will look better later. Okay, so.
You tell me if it's kind of sticky.
Yeah, mine is very sticky, to be honest with you. So so instead of getting it all over my hands, what I think I'm gonna do is wrap it in the wax paper and roll it in this paper.
Mm-hmm.
And let me show you what it looked like the other day.
It's a nice burrito.
Pardon?
It looks like a nice
burrito. Well, the other day I made this because I always test these a couple times before I do these shows. And this is what my little wax paper dough burrito looked like. I like to seal off the ends just for, I guess, freshness reasons. And I put it in the fridge and I chilled until firm. And then I chopped it up and then put it on a cookie sheet. And then this is what the final product looked like.
Mm. You know what? They look tasty, don't they?
They sure do. So now,
and you know what?
Relax
Carrie?
a little bit, having the burrito here chilling and being put aside in a moment. So
you know what? Can I just tell you? I have some left over on the same plate, but yours grew up. But you know what? You got to be careful because once you start eating 3 and 4 of them, you've got to stop. Because I ate 6 of them the other day.
So what we're going to do now that the mixture is basically done, we are just going to have some coffee and cookies and talk about Lucy. So when, Rick, was the first time you were aware of Lucille Ball? What was your entree into the world of Lucy?
Well, I can tell you that it was quite a long time ago and I was in school. And I won't mention what decade, but I kind of did recently on another interview I came home from school at 3:30 in the afternoon and the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour was on. And obviously these were reruns already and repeats, but I didn't know anything about I Love Lucy. I just knew this pretty lady was funny and everything. And this show was the last 13 episodes they did after I Love Lucy, they renamed it Lucy Desi Comedy Hour. But my mother's the one I credit, as I said before, that she said, there's a show that predates this called I Love Lucy. And I said, no, what is it? Then she also told me that she did film. And then, I don't know, something about her, the fact that she was pretty, that she was hysterically funny, that she was part of this great team of 4. I thought, who is this woman? And I started doing homework. Yes, I actually went to the library and looked her up and said, wow, she did all that? So I was enterprising enough as a kid to go, she just struck my, fancy that I thought so there was something special about her that stood out. And that TV show, the second series, was the one that started me on Lucy. And I have to tell you that I moved out to LA in 79. And one of my best friends is Tom Watson, who is, he was Lucy's publicist and has done several books on her and a great guy. He said, we're going to go down to USC and Lucy's doing a talk with, of all people, Charles Walters, famous dance director and then director. Oh, you're familiar with Charles Walters, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. He directed Judy Garland in several movies.
There they are on stage. And I'm thinking, my God, we're in the first row at USC's screening room. There's got to be 200-300 people behind me. And for some reason, we just sat right in front, and Lucy sort of did a little wave to Tom. She knew who he was. That's the first time we met afterwards. And not only were they giving a terrific talk, they were showing DuBarry Was a Lady after. So not only did I get to see Lucille Ball, the older woman in person, funny, acerbic, all the great things, then they're showing her in 1942, 43 in full gorgeous Technicolor, where that's where she got that flame red look. Sidney Gilleroff, you know that name,
Yeah,
from MGM. She was at MGM and gave her that look. And I'm saying, oh my God, look at her. So she actually stayed for the whole film. And I have to tell you briefly that one lady stood up in the audience, and, Lucy and Charles Walters were talking. And she said, well, I was in that film too. And Lucy said, well, who is it? She couldn't see her. She was all the way in the back. It was Virginia O'Brien. So she came to see the film and see them talk as well. So I got a shot with her, and then Lucy was just walking up the aisle leaving. She wasn't all with her entourage. It was her alone. So that's the first time we met. And needless to say, I was duly impressed. And she couldn't have been friendlier. She was lovely. So that was my entry to Lucy, and then getting to meet her. But over the years, I've met her several times, and to see her work in her last series in 1986, truly, I mean, your person that you really enjoy is going back to work. When she said, I can't possibly top myself. Look what I've done, and look at the team I had. But Aaron Spelling convinced her to go back to work in 1986 for ABC. So I was lucky enough to be there every week watching her work and seeing, like a little kid, this was a seasoned person that at 75 came back to work and still looking amazing, and trying to do it once more. And quite frankly, without going into that story, it tanked. She was fired. They let her go. They did 13 shows. They only showed 8. And if they would have just given it a little more time, maybe, just maybe, one more time, you would have been successful. But she was so mad about it, not about being fired and getting bad, what she called notices, the fact that all those people were out of work. And, that's a big deal. The ego wasn't there where, oh, well, they're firing me. It was like, all you people are out of work now. It was a pretty good team. So that was my later connection. And one more little tidbit, my friends that worked on the show were kind enough to invite me back. And I had a huge camera all the time, every week. And when she saw me, she was very, very sweet. This was after the show. So she didn't, you never saw before the show because you don't want to bother them, but afterwards and one time John Ritter did the show and he was leaving, and she came over and said, John Ritter's leaving, like a little kid, please, can we get a shot together? There was an ABC photographer on the set. I wasn't a union, but yet I was back there taking pictures, and very, very grateful, to say the least. And when she didn't want her picture taken, good night. So it wasn't like I'm leaving. It was just like, it was pleasant, but no. So you kind of knew where you stood, but it was always very professional, very nice. So my entry and then later years to meet her and be around, hey, I'm a little kid from St. Louis, and you're finally meeting the lady that you grew up with. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question.
I think my introduction to her was, of course, on reruns as a kid. Mm-hmm. I would watch on TV, like in the 80s when I was a kid. And she was just so beautiful, as you say, and so funny. And she was just magic. And you just couldn't take your eyes off of her, And it's only later I kind of discovered, oh, she made movies too, because I think most people, the gateway drug was the TV show. Right. And I think the movies never fully harnessed what Lucy was capable of the way that television did. I will say, though, that one movie I do like of her is Dance Girl Dance, directed by Dorothy Arzner, and it's got Maureen O'Hara. There's a great Criterion DVD of it out, by the way, too. But Lucy plays like a gold-digging showgirl in that one, and it's a really fun movie. It's got some really relevant things to say about women in it as well. So I do recommend that one.
Well, the funny thing is, that was 1940, and she was so worried because she just looked at the face of Maureen O'Hare and said, why are they putting me with her? You know,
Who wouldn't be? Who would not
oh,
feel that way,
exactly.
frankly?
But Lucy takes over pretty well. And you know what's fun? Our friends Daryl Rooney and Darren Barnes were so kind to introduce me towards the end to Mary Carlisle at the motion picture home, who made it to 104.
I met her too.
Yeah, and she's in that film. She's in Dance Girl Dance, and she has a few scenes, but she's so tiny next to Lucy in these scenes. But the fact is, I have to say, just a segue. Today is Marsha Hunt's 104th birthday. Isn't that amazing? So, and if you don't know who Marsha Hunt is, everybody go look her up. She's still hanging in there, and she's very important. In fact, right as we're speaking, her documentary is on Turner Classics again. So didn't mean to do the segue, but these 104, how lucky are we?
Right? I have a picture of myself with her, and she signed my book that she wrote about fashion called The Way We Wore. So
Oh yeah, that's more, yeah.
I treasure that for sure.
Yeah, she's a cool lady. I was lucky to be at her 100th birthday. In fact, I've been very partial to the older ladies. I was at Gloria Stewart's 100th birthday through a friend of mine who was her agent. And it's like these sparks in these ladies' eyes that are still there. There's a reason for obviously great genes, but I have to tell you that there was one other movie going back to her movie career, Big Street. Big Street isn't bad at all. And she turned to, and it's with Henry Fonda, 1942, RKO. And she turned to, of all people, Charles Lawton. Oh my God, I'm such, a bitch in this film. That's not my image, but I'll do what I have to do. I'm grateful for the job. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, if you're gonna play a bitch, play the bitchiest bitch you can possibly do. And she did. And she got great reviews. So she was very proud of that film.
I want to talk for a minute about Stage Door because Turner Classic Movies showed that the other night. And of course, I love that movie. It's got Ginger Rogers, Katharine Hepburn. I was so lucky to get to see it on Nitrate at the Egyptian,
Oh,
courtesy
wow.
of the TCM Festival a few years ago. And Lucy has a supporting role in that movie. Talk to me about the role that Ginger Rogers' mother played in Lucy's life and career in the early years.
She was I believe, an acting teacher, and she had
Leela Rogers, right?
yeah, Leela Rogers embraced Lucy, and allegedly they are related. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's what I've read, so I can't verify it. But Leela Rogers was a strong force, and she had her, plays that they would put on. They made a little, place for her in the RKO lot, and she was I guess she wanted to be an actress herself, but her daughter took over for that. And she watched over her, like, as we all know, very, very tightly. But the relationship, from what I've seen and read, was pretty good. And Lucy fell under that same spell that Leela gave her early jobs to, again, perfect her craft. Lucy started early in 32, 33, coming out from Jamestown. And when somebody like a Leela Rogers helps you like that and believes in you, you sort of fit physically a bill of just this, tall, thin, at the time, platinum blonde, but then she toned it down. And she did a couple of things with her that I can't remember the names of right now, but they were on the lot. And Leela, again, was a very strong force, as we know, in this industry, and she protected her. And even later in one of Lucy's television shows, Ginger did a guest spot. So, and if they were cousins, I don't know for sure, but they may have been related. It's just that that family was very important to her, as family was in general to her, about, being important.
Well, let's talk about the role of Lucy's mom, Dee Dee, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dee Dee's role in
She never
Lucy's
called her
life.
mother mom. I don't know why. I guess maybe I can relate. I called my dad Bill, even though his name was John. No, boom, boom. It's like there was a familiarity there and a comfort zone, and he loved it. So he didn't mind me calling his first name. Other people are like, you can't do that. But I would say that Dee Dee was another strong force in her life, that early on, at 15 years old, she allowed her to go to New York New York, to go find her way. 15.
That's
So
very young.
I'm sorry?
That's a very young age.
And very progressive, to say the least. And Lucy may, according to what I've read, I can't say this for sure, I wasn't there, but she may have been a little wild and a little, before her time. And yeah, she had the Turner Classics podcast talks about her boyfriend. She's 14, Johnny DeVita, who was not a gangster, I guess, but the thing is, she was very progressed. And at the same time, for those that don't know the story, her mother, Dee Dee, was allowing her, because she was working, and Lucy was apparently progressed enough that she allowed her to go to New York to find her way. She went into an acting school that they wrote her mother back saying, and most people know this story, but they wrote her mother, Dee Dee, send her back, get her back. She's just not cut out for this business at all. And the great story is, who was in that class with her?
Betty Davis.
Betty Davis. And she said, that's it. I can't do what that woman does. And they're both kids, but already you see it's there. And the fact is, wouldn't you love to have that note? Take your daughter back. She's too shy, too reticent. She's not going to make it. I don't know who that person was, but that was the John Murray, I can't remember the whole name, Anderson, school for acting. And the fact is that she didn't do well. She came back home. She was so homesick, but then she went back, and more towards the late 20s, early 30s. And that is how the famous story of her walking down the street and someone said, why are you here in New York? Because it's so bloody hot. And next thing you know, what do you mean why am I in New York? She was a Hattie Carnegie model at that point and fit the bill. And somebody said, well, my mother's not letting me go to Hollywood for an Eddie Cantor film. Why don't you go? And she did. And Dee Dee allowed it. So, the fact is that as soon as Lucy started to make her way a little bit, boom, the whole family out to LA to be with me. And she knew that her relationship with her mother was so strong, like Leela's was with Ginger. So I hope that sort of puts it in perspective, but it's just the fact that family truly was important to that woman. And so she brought her grandfather out, what she called daddy. She brought her brother out. She, all these people were coming into it was in Hollywood on Ogden Street. It's still there. It's a cute little craftsman home. So, the fact is that wanting to succeed in this business, and, I mentioned Eddie Cantor. Well, that was the first film, Roman Scandals, that she came out for. In fact, I have a picture of it I can show you later, them all arriving, on the train. And do you want to see it now, or should we just do it later about her career?
Well, I know our audience loves some show and tell, and frankly, I do too. So hit us up with it.
Well, all right, let's see if I can get this together. The thing is, let me open that first. It will go through her career a little bit in stills, but this woman kept herself. She was an athlete. She kept herself in shape the whole period, as far as I'm concerned. But let me get this going for you. Okay. And what we're going to do is, this is Lucy in the late 20s. She was actually a Chesterfield cigarette billboard girl. And this was a copy of the original painting. And to this day, I've never seen that billboard. But this was on display at Universal when they had the Lucy tour in the 90s and beyond. But this is Lucy at probably, I'd say 28, 29, 1928, 29. And then here they are arriving, just what we're talking about. This is Lucy at the right end, right here. And they called her, in fact, I'm trying to read it. She is Lucille Ball of New York, whose smile lights Chesterfield cigarette billboards. The girls will appear with Eddie Cantor in Roman Scandals, produced by Samuel Goldwyn.
I love the top left-hand side that says truckload of pulchritude. We should all have a truckload of pulchritude in our lives.
Well, talk about sexist, but somebody wrote that. 7 models for famous ads arrive in LA. And this lady right here is Barbara Pepper.
Yes, Barbara Pepper. She's at Hollywood Forever.
Barbara Pepper, later known for Mrs. Ziffel from Green Acres, right? And what's so funny is all these girls remained friendly. They went from Fox, they went to Columbia, you know, they were all over the place. Goldwyn girls, this is what they were coming out to be, Goldwyn girls. And they kind of stuck together because, you know, they're first coming out and they don't know anybody. So
I like that. I like women being allies instead of enemies.
right. And what's so funny, I have to tell you, Lucy she considered herself absolutely not beautiful, not glamorous in the least. And she said, Barbara Pepper is the one. In fact, Barbara Pepper's face right here, you can see, but Lucy's got the legs just like they all do. But it's like Barbara Pepper in the films sometimes got a little more close-ups. And Lucy does have one in this film. But speaking of, there she is. This is
very pre-code.
Yep. 19, you know, this is Eddie Cantor's Roman Scandals. And why did Lucy get this full treatment? Did all the girls get it? I don't know. But there she is after she arrived. They apparently, from what I've read, that the film went long. And she was so grateful because now I can really make some money and bring my family out. We then go to, all right, this is publicity shots. This is probably from 33, 34. So she became a platinum blonde.
See the Ginger Rogers or Jean Harlow kind of influence.
Very Jean Harlow, you're right.
Super thin eyebrows, platinum blonde hair.
Right. And she was originally a chestnut, sort of chestnut blonde, but more darker, to say the least. But known for being a blonde for at least 3, 4, 5 years, same time period. So a lot of publicity done on her. Then we jumped around 38 or so. She's with the Marx Brothers. This woman worked with everybody.
Yes.
This is Room Service, 1938, with a bit role, but Ann Miller's also in it. And I think they will be shown, if they just showed it on Turner.
They just showed it, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Dance Girl Dance, there she is. So I wouldn't say for sure that this woman was unattractive in the least.
Not at
But
all.
I mean, come on.
Well, you're comparing yourself to like Maureen O'Hara or other
right.
people. I mean, that's kind of.
I think she held her own hair. Look at this.
Absolutely.
It's 1940. You know, this is MGM days when, you know, her hair went carrot red through Cindy Gilleroff, which we talked about. But I don't know. I think she's a very attractive, beautiful woman here. And
I think so too.
I don't think there's a ton. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
People like Lucille Ball, Judy Garland, they may not have been like classified as, say, the Maureen O'Hara or Hedy Lamarr attractiveness, but they had so much character, so much talent. They had so much to offer beyond just their appearance.
Right, right. And they called her Technicolor Tessie here. This is because it was in Life magazine. She was so perfect for Technicolor. That's what they dubbed her. And this is promoting, I thought this was Big Street time, but actually no, this is DuBarry time. So
I love that ring she has on.
There you go. More publicity from the same time period. No. And typical 40s, full color.
Beautiful.
And then we jump to obviously 1940, and I think we all know this story, but this is their brand. Say again?
She meets Desi in 1940.
She sure does. And they eventually scraped some money together, bought a ranch in Chatsworth. They named Desi-Lou. And this is what everybody wants them to, you know, be their entire life on the television and in real life. And it started off that way, but, you know, you can see they're just so cute together. And from what I've heard, I think Lucy even said it took all of like 3 minutes when they first met. And they were married shortly thereafter. And in 44, they were getting a divorce. It wasn't gonna, everybody said it would last a month. It lasted 4 years. Allegedly, the story goes that they got together in the hotel room and divorce was out. So they lasted until 1960. So, you know, from 20 years.
They had chemistry.
And there's the obviously publicity shot for their television show, I Love Lucy. Her look that is clearly established in everybody's eyes, this is what Lucy remains. And you've seen that picture.
Oh yes, this is on the dining room table right here, thanks to you.
This is what, I mean, she embraced that, fiery carrot color hair up until the end. It may have toned down a little, but this was a brunette, but I guess the coloring just worked for her. In fact,
same with Rita Hayworth too.
yeah. Carrie, there's that same ring.
Oh, wow, very cool.
I think that may have been a personal thing. Then she embraced the 60s. Same look, just progressed, bigger hair, wild color. All the way up to Maine, 1974, still kept herself in shape, wanted to do that so badly. They bought the rights. And of course, everybody thought Angela Lansbury should do it, but Lucy, bought the rights and did the film, hoping, after all the TV is over, all right, I'm going to go back to film. And she did it, but we won't talk about the reviews actually weren't bad at all, but then they tore it down. And she was really upset by it because it's actually a fun film, but people have called it all kinds of names, but she tried. Her second husband, Gary Morton, was a 27-year, I think I've got that right, marriage. Very strong, very real. He was always there for her. When he went out and played golf all the time, she knew exactly where he was. No more games. And this was taken on the set of her last series, Life with Lucy. And that's the promotion for I think that's Aaron Spelling's house. And here she is, 74, 75 years old, still, the model. You can tell that she, embraced it. And sadly, but happily, we have photos. That's her last appearance publicly at the Oscars. And she and Bob Hope did it one more time. She had a great ovation. She went to Spago afterwards, and there's video footage somewhere of her, of course, the dress was, the legs were, the skirt is split all the way up, and she's out there kicking her heels to show everybody I still got my, figure, which is pretty cool for a 75-year-old woman.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a little bit of Lucy photographically.
Right. Excellent. What are some of the other goodies you have to show us today?
Well, can I show a clip right now? It might be kind of fun.
Absolutely.
This shows, and it doesn't have music, so hopefully we're good, but let me see if I can get this together. This is a clip from, here's Lucy, 1973. She's portraying an artist, which is very nice for me to see. But her longtime co-star, Gail Gordon, who she wanted for Fred Mertz and didn't get. But Gail Gordon went all the way with her to the end. And here is a little clip to show Lucy in action with Gail Gordon. Okay.
Harry, I'm sorry. Oh, good heavens. What are you doing here?
What are you doing here?
Well, I'm trying to learn how to paint.
Pictures or people?
I'm painting landscapes.
Oh, all right.
You look terrible. You look like you got a disease.
Well, with you around, well...
I didn't know you were interested in art.
I'm not. But I've been advised that a good artwork is a very sound investment.
And the reason I'm showing you that is right here is the actual smock that she's wearing. I was able to get it a few years back, and it was Michael Stern, a huge Lucy fan and knew Lucy very well, she would go right to her closet and pull things out. She kept everything. And for an artist to have an artist smock and it's still being in great shape, I was really lucky to get that. And that's one I'm not letting go. So that was a fun way for sort of as a collector as well to keep her nearby, but realizing what it is and putting it in perspective. It's just that, Gail and she had such a great relationship, and he was always yelling at her in every series, but there's that one line in the clip where she, obviously is wiping away the red and said, "You look like you have a disease." It's so, to me, I don't know if that's in the script. It just made me laugh. But anyway, I thought that people might get a little kick out of seeing Lucy behind me. In fact, she's all over the place, but it's just that it just makes it a little comforting and a little more real. But like I said, putting it in perspective, it is just a prop. So anyway, I thought people might like to see that. What else? What's next on our
Very cool.
agenda?
So I know people are probably going to ask a lot about this, and when we get to the Q&A, but Becoming the Ricardos, this is a drama, right? It's not a comedy. It's not meant to be at all.
No, from what I know, it is basically, and it's been written all over the internet, and boy, is it a hot button topic.
Oh yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because Nicole Kidman is playing Lucille Ball and Javier Bardem is playing Desi, and I think a lot of people have a lot of opinions on all of that.
I think basically is the fact that I sit back as a fan trying to divorce myself from that and say, well, why are they doing this? What's the story? Why is it, it's their story has been done a lot. It's been done in 2 TV films, very sensationalistic and not really accurate from what I've read and know. But Aaron Sorkin is writing, producing, and directing, and Lucy Arnaz and Desi Arnaz Jr. are executive producers. So thank God they have a say in it. But Lucy went public and basically said, no, we are not making a Saturday Night Live skit, so everybody has to look exactly just right. I think Aaron Sorkin was looking for powerhouse actors that definitely can bring something to the table. And he was just on Turner Classics talking about the film. And the difference is, I think, I can't really talk about it because I haven't seen it. I just know from what I've heard that this is the story behind the scenes of what went on. And there's a lot to it that he jams into 1 week. So you've got all the players, but you see behind the scenes what it takes to put that show on. It's 1953, at least at one point, where the Red Scare came around, which I don't need to go into, but Lucy was accused of being a communist in September of 53 at the height of her fame. And they wanted to just drag her down because that McCarthy period, people's careers were ruined. There's no getting it back. And this was this was the top comedian on television of all time, at least at that point. And just the fact that let's tear her down. So that's included from what I'm hearing. And he's cast these 2 power actors to bring more to it than, okay, I'm a guy who loves to get it right. I mean, you've got her sitting right there. There's so many photos of this woman, so you know how her lips are, she's got blue eyes, the hair is a certain way, but behind the scenes, there's just as many photographs. And these 2 people are so well known, it's a little tricky. So that first 5 minutes is going to be like, I would imagine, I don't know.
If I were an actor, which I'm not, but if I were, I think it would be just terrible to take on an icon like that, because no matter what you do or how good you are, you're never going to capture what made that person so special. You're never going to get lightning in a bottle. I wouldn't even want to try if I were in that position. But
I think it's extreme. I think you're right. It's extremely daunting. The fact that, you've got Nicole Kidman's not even built like Lucy, but so what? Let's see what she does. And the fact is that Lucy Arnaz recently went on the air on Facebook saying she's seen it. She's happy with it. She said, I don't know how. Now I'm paraphrasing because I just watched the video on Facebook. The fact is that she believed in it from the beginning. And like she said, we're not looking for impersonators. We're not doing Lucy and Ricky. We are doing them behind the scenes. And these are her parents. So, she could have easily said, nope, all wrong, I'm out. But she stuck with it. So I'm hoping what she said is exactly the way the film is, that apparently Nicole Kidman got into Lucy's head somehow. Did she do all her homework, and did she study her like Renee Zellweger? I don't know. But you know what? I have to say, I'll wait and see. So the scope of it, it's supposed to be released in December, from what I'm hearing. It'll be theatrically released and then on Amazon Prime. So we'll all decide, but other friends have said, this movie is not for us. This is not what we're expecting. Well, you're not there. So let's give it a chance. After it, fine. You can make your opinion about it. You have a right once you've seen it. But I have to say, I was very fortunate to be involved with it. And it came so crazy because I do have, like, from what you're eating off of, those are Franciscan ivy plates, and everybody that is a collector of Lucy knows that pattern. Well, I have them peppered around the house, a lot of these, what I call prop-alikes, and they are the exact same pieces, but not the ones from the show. Some might be, but most aren't. And the mere fact is that I was trying to get a hold of that production company, but I sold something on eBay, and it turned out it was one of the prop people needing a little, tchotchke, as we call them. But I met her in the back of my work, handed it over, and something told me just to say, by any chance, are you working on the I Love Lucy? I mean, the Being the Ricardos movie? And she looked me right in the face and said, well, yes, I am. And I said, you need to come over. So one thing led to another. I signed the contracts. They pay me right away. Away went some of my things. I'll get to see how it's used. I'm not sure. And the end of the whole story is when I was leaving, I was lucky to visit the set, and I just was blown away. I truly was blown away at what they did, because I thought for sure they weren't going to do it. And there's the Tropicana, there's the kitchen, there's the living room. And I'm looking at it going, holy, it was really close. What they do on it, we have to wait and see. But at the very end, when I left that, I happened to give a gift to the lady who was kind enough to get me in there. And by the time I got home, there was an email saying, well, we're doing a little scene in 4 days, and Lucy's coming in for a fitting, and we want some costume sketches behind her. Can you work them? We didn't know that you did the illustrations for the paper doll book. So I'm hired again, which I just told this story recently, but it's just that, it's a big deal for me because I had 4 days to create 12 sketches of all of them. It wasn't just Lucy. And I'll wait to see how it looks. I don't know. So
And
yeah.
You very generously gifted me with a copy of the Lucy paper doll book that you did all of the illustrations for.
Yeah, that was a while back. And the fact is that Alan Glasser, who is the author of the book, came to me and said, I want you to do this. And I said, I don't know about paper dolls. I can draw, but do you, he says, I'll wait for you because nobody else will care. That was a really kind thing to say. And that book has been everywhere. And, yeah, I did 3 book covers at one point, but that's the last one in 2004. And the first one, I was a kid. I was honored. There was a book in 1976 called Lucy, Ricky, Fred, and Ethel, the story about I Love Lucy. And it was the first one ever done. And then when it came time for paperback, the author, said, do you want to do the artwork for the cover? And I'm like, well, yeah. So it's just that it comes full circle. So as a kid in St. Louis, I'm doing a cover of a book nationally. And then here we are, in April this year, being involved again with her. She's just this inspiration, I have to say. But like you're saying, she's touched a lot of people's lives in many ways. And in film, look who she's worked with. I mean, even people like the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers and William Holden and Henry Fonda. And it's like Bob Hope, I think four or 5 times. But it's just that we didn't mention one person who I would like to share some stills with, who was definitely an influence in her life. Let me open this up. I think you'll enjoy it because it does bring us back a little more vintage. Let me see. You know what? I don't know that I can do this because these I did not make a, let me see if I can show this. I'm just gonna have to show the list, but
Okay.
Can you see that? No, you can't. You see the list.
I see the list, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to forego this one, but the main thing is that Buster Keaton was a huge influence in Lucy's life. And he apparently saw her up and coming in the late 30s, early 40s, and was very instrumental. He saw a spark in her that, I recognize this. And I guess they met. I wish I could show it, but there's shots of them at the Chatsworth Ranch at Desilu, and they're both dressed up in vintage swimming costumes. And then they eventually, there's a shot of him. I'm sorry I didn't get this one to work, but there's a shot of him visiting the I Love Lucy set, and you see how tiny he is compared to these two, 5'6", 5'7", 5'8" people. And the best one was in 1965, they did get to work together. So there was a special salute to Stan Laurel, and they did a little skit together. And I think there's a cop in the scene, and that's Harvey Korman. So the fact that Lucy and Buster Keaton, all those years knowing each other, finally got to work together. That's to me, that's pretty cool that you get to work with these geniuses. And he's giving her all this information about props. Respect your props, know how to work with it. Oh my God. Anything that she did on that set, she learned exactly. I need to learn how to play a saxophone, which she kind of did already, but I'll learn it. She needs to make sure that toast is popping out of the, and catching it right away. And that's the thing about a genius to me, is to handle that, because it's daunting. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, sure. Yeah, because comedy timing is everything. So you've got to have that sort of precision.
Yeah, and a stickler, a total stickler for rehearsal. I mean, very, very serious about rehearsing. And I think from what I heard, there's a scene in the film, being the Ricardos, about that, where she's calling people up at 1 o'clock in the morning, get over to the studio, let's go, we got to get, and they're like, I'm sleeping. Don't know if that's true, but it's the fact that this woman knew what she was doing because she rehearsed it and made it look so easy, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole key to it. But you talked earlier about being a trailblazer.
Yes, because Lucy was on so many levels that I don't think people really realize today.
No, can you imagine, like I said earlier, trying to get ahead in the business, and you're making a name for yourself, and the fame is coming, and then you meet somebody and you want to have a life, and then you want children, which she did. She tried to do it all, and for the most part, she succeeded, I would say, a lot in all those facets. It's just the fact that that's a lot to put on somebody. And then running a studio and still going to work and trying to make sure your kids are okay and doing the best you can, again, with help. But the fact is, when she was the sole owner of Desilu, she okayed, as a lot of people know, Star Trek, Mission Impossible, Mannix. I mean, the fact that they earlier were okaying Untouchables. I mean, you have to have some savvy to say, nah, let's go with this. I mean,
Well,
yes.
another trailblazing aspect was Lucy had her pregnancy on the air, and typically in that day and age, actresses would be fired if they were pregnant. And even sometimes in modern times, like I think Julia Louis-Dreyfus was behind counters and grocery bags on Seinfeld when she was. So to write that into the script on national television, was a big deal. And
You have to approve, get it approved, which they did. The story goes, a priest, a rabbi, and a minister. And Jess Oppenheimer, the executive producer and head writer and genius that brought us this, the fact is that he's the one who said, let's work it into the show. I think I've got that right. It's just that it was unheard of. You never would show a woman. This is 1951, but 53 is when they worked it into the show. And Desi Jr. was born January 19th, 53, the same night little Ricky was being born. Now, come on, that's just too much. But the thing is, he knocked Eisenhower off the front pages. So little Desi being born, in 53. And the funny thing is, they had to use a different word. It's French, ancient.
Expecting. Okay, yeah.
Oh, they could not say anything. Well, they would say expecting, and she's with child, whatever it was. The phrase is, it's to use the name of the show when she finally tells Ricky she's going to have a baby at the nightclub. He finally realizes, whoa, everybody's seen that scene, like Bite Me to Vegement. Those two scenes are just in our brain. but it's so real. You know something's going on behind the scenes, that these two people are just like one. And they wanted to redo that scene, and everybody said, no, 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 it's too real. And I defy you to watch that, the whole show and see him react and not get a little emotional, unless
And
you're.
also, Madeline Pugh Davis was a writer for the show and a longtime collaborator with Lucy as well.
She was amazing. And Bob Carroll Jr. and Madeline wrote all those shows, you know, obviously with their head writer, but those two people, you know, with the third, they asked Aaron Sorkin the other day, when you did West Wing, how many writers did you have? He goes, 10, you know, at least. These people did 39 episodes a year. How do you sit and write? How do you come up with Vitamita Vegemin, by the way? But the fact is, these two people, Madeline was a genius in her own right, and she was Madeline Pugh Davis Martin, or Madeline Pugh Martin Day. I always get it mixed up. But the one thing she didn't like, and she wrote a book, and they used, when they introduced two other writers later in the I Love Lucy series, they both were named Bob. So you had three Bobs and Madeline. I'm sorry. Yes, three Bobs and Madeline. They called them three Bobs and a babe. Well, can we get a little more sexist? But, you know, she says, wait a minute, I'm in there writing as much as everybody else. Don't refer to me that way. But sweet, very generous, very low key. And she apparently, from Bob Carroll's mouth, said that she tried all the stunts out that Lucy would do beforehand. You're a writer. Why are you testing out the stunts? You know, all the crazy things that they made her do, she tried it first to see if it was plausible and it would work. But I guess the one, and he talks about it on air, the one thing they couldn't have her do was, she was rolling up in a rug like Cleopatra, but how's she supposed to get out the door? So she was rolling on the floor, and you're wide, so you can't turn and scooch out, scratched it. So the mere fact that somebody like Madeline, who was a sweetheart in person, I mean, I was lucky. That's the part that I am grateful for the most. I can't say that I was friends with Lucy, but I certainly met her enough times that she kind of knew who I was. But then you meet her editor, Dan Kahn, you meet her co-star, Doris Singleton, who played Carolyn Appleby. You meet these people that are geniuses in their own right for what they do. It's a very, very cool thing that somebody like this brings all these people together. And on the internet, I mean, there's so many groups on celebrities that we like. You've got a wonderful page yourself. But I mean, the fact that these people that we just saw on television or in the movies are bringing us all together, that's very cool in my head. So
definitely. So we do have a little more show and tell. Rick, are you ready to do the second round of?
Oh yeah, thank you. I'm watching the clock too. We're doing fine. This, unfortunately, I can't show a clip. So I'm going to show you stills as soon as I can figure this out. Hang on one second. This is Lucy at her prime, which we've discussed. But I would just say that while I'm going to show you this, this is Lucy in 1942-3 at MGM for Dewberry Was a Lady, which I mentioned earlier. That was the film that I saw her in first on the screen and met her. Again, this is Irene, who was the costumer at MGM. And this is, well, let me just go through it a sec. This is Lucy from the film with her co-stars at the end. Gene Kelly, Red Skelton. There's Virginia O'Brien. And I think that's Tommy Dorsey. I can't remember which Dorsey, but that's one of the Dorsey brothers. This is the very end of the film. But look at the publicity shots that MGM did in those days. And the fun part about this is this. This shows you the beautiful color that it was. But the cool part about it, and just forgive me for 1 second while I wheel it in. Let me stop sharing. And there she is.
There's the dress.
There's the actual dress from the
that's
film.
beautiful.
So the light pink that you see in the film, because it's intensified in Technicolor, probably pushed it a lot much, but it was probably a very light pink. Greg Schreiner is responsible for us seeing this today. That is my friend who is a genius himself, a Renaissance man, but a major costume collector. And we sat together at an auction years ago, and he wanted it because of the designer, not necessarily because of Lucy, but the fabric itself is, what he told me, silk crepe, and the dye was unstable. So it was a light pink. All the beading on it is bugle beads that were a fiery color, as we just saw. They are, subdued now, but it's in pretty good shape, except that dye faded pretty quickly. And now it's sort of a light tan, as you see, ecru color. But it's a little strange again to have Lucy sitting right in my house.
Can you bring it closer to the computer or the
Yeah, let
camera?
me see
so
if
we
I can
see
do that.
details?
I just want to get this out of the way. See if we can. It's gonna probably cut her head off, but you can see the intense work that. Can you see that at all?
Yeah. I'm one of those people, I love to look at costumes up close because everything is about details, especially with vintage. So I love to look at the cut and the beads and the intricacy of the clothing.
Right. I mean, it's ribbed. It's that silk crepe, he's telling me, but pretty durable, because what's so crazy about this? The clip of Red Skelton and Lucy at the end, they're singing Friendship, which is so funny because, of course, Lucy and Ethel end up singing Friendship on the show on I Love Lucy, but this was the precursor, and then they all join at the very end. And it's just kind of sad that this looks pink here, but it's actually apricot color, but this faded all the way down completely. I thought it would fade in spots, but what's interesting about it, I don't think you can see it here, but the zipper is still pink. And
Wow.
it told me, there's zippers on the sleeves and one in the back, and that told me that this was probably light pink, because it shows up that way in the film. So I hope that it's a little surprise. I wanted to show the clip, but it's like, we got it. So hopefully that is a nice little show and tell.
Excellent. Why don't we take, while you're working with the costume there, let me see what questions people might have for us
Alrighty.
on social media.
I'll just leave these two gals here.
Just a sec for me.
While you're looking, can I just say one last thing?
Sure.
That we've heard it before, but Carol Burnett was, I almost say that Lucy was her mentor, because clearly Carol Burnett was taken with her like we all are. But while Carol Burnett was doing her show, Lucy had a meal with her during a rehearsal for the Carol Burnett show, and they went out to dinner. And the story is published, and Carol's told it over the years, but it just shows you how, negative the press, Lucy knew exactly what was going on. She knew the score, but the story is that Burnett recalled how Ball told her a story about a difficult moment she experienced with her writing on the Lucy show, because she's on her own now. And Ball, according to Burnett, said she went in no uncertain terms to tell the writers what was wrong with the script and how to fix it. So it was a little harsh. And then she took another drink and said, and that kid, that's when they put the S on my last name. So she had her reputation, but at the same time, it's like, I don't think she walked in there and said, this is just crap. I mean, maybe she did, but the fact is that now, again, it's a woman telling you all this. And it's like, respect her. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact is that when she started out so early, and here you are 30 plus years in the business, knowing every last little detail of it. she just didn't come on and be Lucy. She knew where everything was. So
Monique is asking us, do you know who lives in Lucy's house now?
years ago, I was told they are tearing Lucy's house down. They weren't. They were restoring it because it was allegedly, had its issues. And I heard a family name called the Friedmans. I don't know for sure, but they definitely altered the house. That was in Beverly Hills. And the story is really cool that Lucy actually was across the street looking for a house. And the agent and everything was working, and Lucy crossed the street and she liked the house across the street. And allegedly she said, "Do you want to sell this house?" And the lady was saying, "We were thinking about it because her son was a soldier and they didn't need a big house." But to answer the question, I think a family called the Friedmans. I don't know if they still live there, but the house has been redone and it's right there on Roxbury and Lexington. So it kind of has the shape still, but it's changed.
I hate when that happens, but I understand.
Oh, I went over there. A friend said they're tearing Lucy's house down. They're tearing it down, and it's on a tour. And she was responsible, for later to have those big buses that would go around and around the streets to get smaller. She said, "We're not going to tell people they can't come by, but maybe just have it just 14 in a little van." And years ago, when we did our Lucy conventions, I got to one of the policemen in Beverly Hills saying, "Can we lease these? Are they gonna get out?" Because we went on our tours and we wanted to go by the house. "Are they gonna get out?" And I said, "No, they'll stay on the bus." He said, "No problem. Just tell them Sergeant Robert Smith says, talk to me if you have any issues."
Well, people are loving the dresses, the smock and the dress. Lots of comments on that.
Cool.
For some reason, all the comments are not popping up on my phone. I don't know why, but let's see.
You
Danny
should-
Miller wants to know, first he wants to get inside your house. Danny, he's a friend. We'll have to talk about that.
Who wants to?
Danny Miller, he's a friend. He has
Yeah.
co-hosted very generously the Anna Mae Wong episode, the Lon Chaney Sr. episode. He lives in a 1909 Craftsman, and he's been so generous in his support.
From all
Danny's
intents
saying-
and purposes, a good guy.
Huh?
From what I hear, a good guy.
Oh, excellent. Danny's saying, I don't remember any mention of the Annabelle films. What does Rick think of those?
Jack Oakey and Lucy did 2 films together. The Annabelle series, there was allegedly supposed to be a whole series. I think it was 38, 39, maybe somewhere in there. And they just showed them on Turner on the first round of films for the Star of the Month. And first of all, she's absolutely stunning in it to me, but it's wacky and silly and fun. And they were supposed to do a whole series, like with Ann Southern and Maisie.
Yeah.
And allegedly the story is that Mr. Oakey wanted a little too much money and they scrapped the whole series. That was it. I don't know if it was that simple, but Lucy was on a roll and she loved it. But that's what I know. It was the Affairs of Annabelle, and Annabelle Takes a Tour. And like I said, I think that was 38, 39. She was happy just to be working. But what's also interesting, if you look at the first one, in the very beginning of the titles, there's like this mask that's under the credits. It's her. And I'm like, where did that go? Where did this artwork go? So as an artwork collector as well, I'd love to get my hands on that, but unfortunately it's not around.
Michelle Sebastian Price is asking, any comments on her relationship with Vivian Vance?
Great story. From what, again, I wasn't there. I can only paraphrase, but Mr. Oppenheimer, the creator, I don't know if Jess was there, but I know that Mark Daniels, the first director of I Love Lucy, and Desi went down to La Jolla, or they went to a playhouse to see Vivian Vance working in a play called Voice of the Turtle, and thought, this is our Ethel. She's brilliant. Yeah, she had done film, a lot of stage work, but Lucy couldn't go because she was quite pregnant. And they came back and said, we found our Ethel, we found our Ethel. And the first time they met, it didn't apparently go so well. I wonder if they cover that. No, they won't cover that in the movie, but because it's too early, that's 51. But the fact is, Lucy kind of looked her up and down and said, she's not Ethel. she's not Ethel at all. I want a dumpy landlady. I want, somebody like, a little overweight and frowsy. And she said, you don't fit the bill. And she said, allegedly, Miss Ball, you should see me in the morning. So they were still Miss Ball and Miss Vance. But then Lucy figured it out pretty quick. Yeah, she was Ethel. And that whole silliness about her being overweight and this, that, and the other, she can't be glamorous. It's just that it was a joke between the two of them. And of course, on the internet, oh, no, this is fact. But they, at the end, they had, not the end, but they had a great friendship. They were like sisters. And the great part is, a friend of mine used to say that if you watch Lucy and Viv work, it's Laurel and Hardy. It really is. This is the female counterpart, to the point where Lucy called her the show doctor, because she would say, what if we try this? What if we try that? And Lucy would say, let's do it. Let's try it. Because Viv was not just an actress coming on. She really wanted to perfect her, her role and the show. So a great relationship as far as I know.
Yeah, I think unfortunately we live in a world that there's this desire for women to be at each other's throats or bitter arch rivals, and it seems to be a publicity thing or a society thing. But I really hate that, and I really love hearing stories about women that are friends and allies and supporting each other, because that's the way it should be.
It should be, exactly. I agree with you. And did they have their moments? Who doesn't have their moments when they're working?
Yeah.
It's a tough situation. You're on such a schedule, but it's like, again, I just will tell you briefly, because people talk about it on the internet all the time. And I'm here to say, from the direct sources that were there, did Viv and Bill get along? Did they hate each other? Blah, blah, blah. I'm sure they go read some of the books, but the truth is, from what I gather, yes, they were not buddy. I think they were totally professional people. It shows on the screen. And the fact that he was 22 years older than her, she was like, well, apparently she said something and he overheard it, and that hurt his feelings. But he was a baseball guy and she was a theater person. And so they didn't have a lot in common. But the point being that I don't think they hated each other, which is all over the internet, and people just keep pursuing the urban myth. But anyway.
People kind of have this mentality of never let the truth interfere with a good story. And I don't really subscribe to that. I think that the truth should be the focus.
Well, it's look what they gave us. That's all we should be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, they gave us so much joy and laughter, and yeah, that should be the focus. I'm always about the work, And on my tour, I always say I can show you the graves, I can tell you the stories. Watch these movies, watch these TV shows. This is where it's at.
Exactly. It's like that show was the perfect combination of brilliant writing, again, by Madeline Pugh, Bob Carroll Jr., Jess Oppenheimer, and a brilliant, gifted cast. And the fact is that all those people went to work to give us this weekly series, and it just kept going and going. And now look at it. It's beyond a juggernaut. It's 70 years later, and it's still on the air.
It's a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful the fact that I got to be around some of these people that would tell me these incredible stories. And I mean, Danny Kahn was he would come from the Pacific Palisades. He was a film editor, TV editor. He was in the industry with his parents, his uncles and his son. And the fact is, this man was right there from the beginning telling me these great stories. So first it was about Lucy, but then it was about his life. So I was, again, very grateful to get the stories directly from someone. But then it was like, okay, what did you do yesterday? So that's the cool part, when you become friends, and now it's life. So, and again, all because of a certain redhead.
Well, we have the questions. There's like 159 comments, but only a few of them are popping up on my phone. This is so.
Hey, let me see if I can help. Let me see. I'll try.
Rick, if you wouldn't mind looking at the comments, and also if we don't get to all of them, which I don't think we will, if you might mind maybe answering them in writing on the page, that would also be great too.
Yeah, let's see. Was her house really built on the Universal lot? Benjamin, your friend Benjamin, by the way.
Yes, we love Benjamin.
Yeah, Benjamin, I'm sorry, I have to become a friend of yours on Facebook. By the way, you did a great Maryland segment with Benjamin, correct?
Yes, and we did a Marlene Dietrich episode with Benjamin, and I'm not going to go into too many details yet, but Benjamin is going to be on more episodes that are in development right now behind the scenes around here. So yes.
Well, if maybe you should co-join Greg Schreiner, who is a terrific, he'd love to do your show. So
there's so many people that I know, and sometimes someone will say to me, why haven't you asked me? And I'm like, I'm going to get to it. I'm just one person and I'm doing the best I can, but I've got a bazillion ideas. For me, it's just a matter of time, a matter of getting to all.
You're one woman. You need a crew. I'll go come and help.
I know, right? I'm going to be in my kitchen cleaning like all afternoon after the broken bowl experience.
I think you did a great job. Look how great this looks and how great you look. And your salute to Lucy. Thank you.
Well, I wore vintage. This is a 1940s polka dot dress. So I wore this in honor of Lucy. And thank you to Rick. Can we talk about the set dressing? Rick came over to my apartment the other day and he brought me a tablecloth that is very similar to the one used on the show. He brought me dishes, all of which I will be bringing back tomorrow morning to you. These plates and this cup, this photograph of Lucy for the table, and tell him about the flowers, because I always try to have flowers decorating the table too.
I think they're apt. I was told by some good sources that Mr. Arnaz used to give his wife, Miss Ball, red and white carnations on their anniversary all the time. And then after the divorce, he was sending them to his daughter for her openings on, Lucy's a very big stage person and extremely talented. Both kids are extremely talented.
How could they not be?
But Jesse sort of, he faded. He wants, to be not in the spotlight anymore, but his sister is in there doing her job to try to entertain us. And she's a good lady. It's just that very talented. I mean, a great singer, but she's saluted her dad with these amazing bands and everything she's put together. Plus she has CDs out, but she's always working. And hopefully she's coming back, and she's in Palm Springs, but she might be coming to LA next year, finally. But I wanted to go back real quick. Benjamin asked something about was her house built on the Universal lot? And that's something I don't know anything about. I don't know. The Desilu studios, there was one in Culver City and one in Hollywood. They moved around quite a bit, but no, not to my knowledge, anything. She was on the Universal lot. That's where they did Here's Lucy later. So later they moved. In fact, that's a fun story because at the very beginning of me coming to LA, we took the Universal tour. And at the time, Lucy was doing her show. And I see a big sign that says, Here's Lucy. And I went, where? And we go on the tour and the tram takes us by Lucille Ball's dressing room. And there was her Rolls Royce sitting there and a big sign that said Lucy. So I knew she was on the lot. But that Rolls Royce was willed to her by, of all people, Hedda Hopper. So she got Hedda Hopper's Rolls Royce. And did she live big? I'd say she lived well.
Hey, she deserved to. She worked her butt off for it. So
sure did.
Can't fault her for that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other question.
And if not, let's do the cooking clips.
Okay. We can end
we
with
can
that.
close it out with the cooking clips.
All righty, let me see if I can get that together. I decided when Carrie first was kind enough to ask me to do this, because I've watched these shows and they're really a lot of fun. And thank God these cookies came out. They look pretty good.
Yeah, I've eaten a couple of them on camera just now. I had a few for breakfast. So yeah, I've been eating my share.
Just be careful not to eat 7 or 8 or 9 of them in a row like I do. So, keep it together. But let's see if I can find this. When Carrie asked me to do this show, I thought, okay, let me see what I can find of Lucy cooking. And there are some legitimate ones at home, but she did a lot of cooking as comedic bits on her series and sometimes in her film. So if you bear with me, I'll try to get this together. This is a little salute to Lucy cooking in film and on television. And here we go. Hopefully. But there's more.
All right, Rick, you have been a wonderful guest. You've been so patient with me this week and you've helped me. You've been fabulous. It's really been a lot of fun getting to hang out with you and spend time with you. So thank you so much for being my special guest today.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And I'm not going to end it by saying we all love Lucy, but I think we do. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. A lot of fun.
And please watch the films on TCM, the TCM podcast, Lucy's podcast, and there is so much wonderful content out there, and I certainly hope that you will check it out.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.